into a brand new wave, drowning out the noise that's tame. Liberty whispers to the brave, breaking free from every chain. Nullify the rules they crave, crypto beats that pave the way. Anarchy with minds that safe, algorithms new dawn of day. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride. Beyond control we take a stand, casting off the iron brand. Freedom flowing through our hands, revolution's our command. Decentralize the way we plan, all together we expand. Breaking shackles for the clan, in this journey we're unplanned. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride.
Welcome in to episode 23 on the solemnest of days. 80 years into the past, the most heinous actions from a few caused the destruction, the massive death count, and the torture of many. This is Legacy News. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Go ahead, pull up the article. Powerless victims watch loved ones get sent to the gas chamber at Auschwitz. We have a responsibility to heed their warnings and carry their message of defiance and humanity forward to the families we love as much as they love theirs. The sheer enormity of the horror is impossible to grasp, but grasp it we must. I've listened in horror to the stories of Holocaust survivors in the UK who told me, if you listen to a survivor, you become a witness. They told of losing their entire families, being marched for hundreds of miles, sent in cattle trucks to concentration camps where they would have their heads shaved and be left to starve. Some saw their mom and dads get dragged away to their deaths from their homes. Others watched their loved ones get sent to the gas chambers at Auschwitz. One told how she watched her mother get shot dead in front of her, falling to the snow in a pool of her own blood. While the remarkable Mala Trebich, I think that's how it's pronounced, the only UK Holocaust survivor to travel to Auschwitz on Monday, told me she hadn't counted how many loved ones she lost in the Holocaust. It's easier to count who remained because there were so few. Of all the immediate family, there were two of us left, my brother and I. I believe that's her right there. She spoke to me about her desperate need to keep the memory of her loved ones and all the other survivors alive as she walked under the formidable gates in Auschwitz. Of all these survivors, stressed to me their desperate desire to relive this hell, to make sure it never happened again. They quote Auschwitz survivor Ellie Versel to me, who said, I believe firmly and profoundly that whoever listens to a witness becomes a witness. So those who hear us, those who read us, must continue to bear witness for us. Until now, they're doing it with us. At a certain point in time, they will do it for us all, or for all of us. With the march of time, the number of survivors has been shrinking, and the ones left, only too aware of their own mortality, say they were lucky to escape death many years ago, but it's catching up to them now. They have done their job. I hope I'm doing mine. We don't have a right to feel horrified. They did. We can't fathom how it must have felt for them, but we do have a responsibility to heed their warnings and carry their message of defiance and humanity forward to the families we loved as much as they loved theirs. And it looks like it's the end of the article.
No comments on this one.
There's a few of them, but there's 21 in the top comment, and they're just talking about Russia and Ukraine.
That's disgusting.
Racism. Yeah,
that's actually disgusting. Scroll down. Let's see. Let's just prove how just inhumane humanity is.
Forgot how. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we don't have to read it, but yeah, if you want to. Yeah. I was just going to say scroll down for the viewers. I mean, yeah, actually this one. Read the second one.
There is no room in society for racism of any kind. It is an absolute tragedy and heartbreak what these human beings went through in World War II. My heart and prayers are with them. But why is Israel doing the modern day same in Gaza, punishing innocent men, women, and children to try and get to Hamas? Are no lessons learned? And there's
you want to answer that one? Let's answer that one. Actually, why is Israel doing the modern day same in Gaza? And that coincides with any genocide or ethnic cleansing. I don't like to utilize the Gaza ordeal as considering it genocide because it's really not to the standard definition of genocide. It is a heinous atrocity that could morph into a legitimate genocide, legitimate distinction of eradicating a population based upon their ethnicity, their race, their creed, their religion, whatever, the way they live, who cares, all for the basis of certain narratives, which is what the Nazis, what we should learn from what the Nazis did, what the Soviets did. I mean, it's all narrative building. Official stories lead to the deaths of many, but the fact of the matter is why have we not learned the lessons of the past in our world today? Whether it doesn't have to be just Israel and Gaza. It goes so much further than Israel and Gaza.
Well, the Israeli government is kind of like a bull in the china shop. They have a purpose, but they don't know what to do with it. All they know how to do is wreck things up and ruin people's lives. So, because they want to put themselves over as a dominant force. I mean, the history of the Israeli Defense Force is rooted in terrorism, right? So why would they stop?
That's every unit of governance. That's every revolution of the world and in the history of world civilization. I mean, everybody was a terrorist at some point. So I mean, I don't really agree with that one. Of course, they were committing terrorism. So were the majority of the land that was known as British between 1921 and 1949, the land known as British mandated Palestine. I mean, and before that, and so on and so forth. I mean, it was violence. I mean, it's not. You can say the Zionist movement had their militias and their terror groups, but so did the Islamists within that time frame as well. I mean, one of the most brutal. It happened, I believe, it was 1926, 26 or 27. One of the most brutal, heinous atrocities of terroristic violence that occurred in what we call the Holy Land today, Palestine, Israel, Judea, whatever you want to refer to it as, was Islamic marked. I mean, it was brutal terrorist, brutal terrorism and just murder and violence and destruction um, within that time frame. And then yes, you do have the Jews, the Jewish or Zionist-backed Jewish groups that committed their heinous atrocities, specifically between 1920 and 1949. So both sides have committed heinous atrocities.
Yeah, I know. From what I remember hearing before, there was a, a the precursor to the state of Israel. There was an organization that came out directly to the Nazis and said, "Hey, look, we'll just take the Jews off your hands. You don't have to do this." And they just refused them. So
they didn't refuse them. They actually they worked out a deal. It was the original plan was to deport the Jewish people from the German occupied lands. And this was a Zionist movement in Germany. These were the German Zionists that came up to the Nazis at the time. And they weren't refused. It was that nobody would take them. So yeah, and then you had the chaos and the division that was occurring already at the moment in the British mandated Palestine region in the former Ottoman Empire. So I mean, it wasn't that the Nazis or the German government actually refused. They actually were working with this Zionist organization to figure out a means to create a deportation scheme to get them out of Germany. So the problem with the deportation scheme of the deportation operations of Nazi-controlled Germany in the 30s was that nobody would take them, not even the United States. I mean, the United States had multiple occasions where we had ships of Jewish immigrants, of European Jewish immigrants that were literally turned away because we didn't want to be part of this. We didn't care. And I mean, maybe we should have accepted them. It probably would have aided in our fight against the Nazi indoctrination of racial superiority and mass murder. Not to say that the Soviet Union wasn't doing anything else, and not to say that any other government doesn't commit atrocities, but what makes the Nazis worse, this is just my opinion, but judging on the judgment of history, what makes the Nazis worse is that it was a specific policy ingrained within the culture of their governance. It was their politics that led to a strategic and industrial style of racial superiority for mass murder, mass deportation, mass murder, mass incarceration, mass slave labor. It was a design of the government to utilize the means to separate a certain group of persons from that personhood, to give them a status of what was referred to as subhuman so that they could do as they please. Not to say that other governments don't do the same thing. I mean, obviously, the Soviet Union was doing the same thing as the Nazis were doing at the same time in Germany. The difference is it wasn't part of the Soviet policy. The policies of the Soviets, the economic, or lack thereof, the economic policies that led to of centralized planning led to outbreaks of famine, led to collective confiscation that left people starving in the streets, and this is communism. Soviet, specifically on the Soviet level, communism leads to mass slaughter through outside influences of policy. So it's not that they're trying to kill people. Maybe they are. I don't know. But the fact is it's their policies that they put in place that end up displacing people from the realities of the needs that they need, because they have this subjective idea that the needs of the many, what is the old saying? The needs of the many outweigh the few. And so thus the many end up dying off. They end up being forced into a situation where it's survival, and many people don't survive. And then you have the aspect of statist philosophy where totalitarianism reigns supreme, and those that are in power want to maintain their power. So yes, they expand into other avenues of maintaining that authority, which results into mass incarceration and mass murder, because that's just how governments operate on the scale of having a monopoly on legitimate force and violence. But as far as the Nazis go, the government of Germany, when the Nazis rose to power, it was their specific designation of ridding anybody that didn't fit the mold of the perfect race.
Oh.
And you could actually, to take that on to talk about Israel, I guess theoretically you could say, well, the state of Israel seems to be on that similar policy making procedure, that if you aren't of a certain blood, then you are not protected, and we will do whatever we can to you to show our force of control, even if we're actually going after these terrorists, Hamas. We don't care what we do. In order to rid Hamas, we will get rid of you, because honestly, you have no worth, because you are not the perfect race. You are not the Israeli. You are not of Jewish descent. You do not hold that blood of the Holy Land. When I could argue and say, actually, many of these Palestinians, as they're referred to now, are actually the Semites that you refer to as being anti-Semitic. They just aren't Jews by religion. They're Muslim and Christian.
Would you like me to keep going through the comments here?
Yeah, if you want to. Let's do some comment hunting. What does Beg say?
They're not. Don't believe everything you read online. Research things properly. Israel was attacked and have still gotten many hostages in Palestine. As a nation, they had no choice but to get them back. Hamas cleverly buried themselves within civilians with no care for those civilians' lives whatsoever. People don't believe this hype that with Israel are trying to wipe off Palestine. They've tried for so many years to bring about peace, and in 2006 they completely withdrew from the Palestinian territory. But just a second, Palestine don't want their state; they want everything, and also they want to fight. Everyone thinks that Jews are weak, but look at how many times they've come back after multiple genocides throughout the last 3,500 years. They'll be fine.
What do you think about that?
I mean, they've been around. They have been around for a very long time. I mean,
yes, but they haven't been in the Holy Land for almost 2,000 years.
No,
So yeah. And this fight that keeps on going, which has been entirely politicized, honestly, by the West. And you could make the argument that these Jews in Israel are not the Jews or the Hebrew of the biblical scripture. You could make the argument that Israel in itself of today is a
AstroTurf.
state. Yeah, it's an AstroTurf. It's a state claimed as a European colony posted in the Middle East. It's almost as if it is a continued Christian even though it's really not Christian versus Muslim realistically, I think the Muslims religiously take this more as a religious holy war, um, radical or not. Um, but you could say this is an extension of the Christian versus Muslim crusades. So, and you could theoretically argue that the Muslims, their whole bound belief system is, I mean, in accordance to their book, their Holy Quran, their Surahs. You could argue that their basis of survival and expansion is that of nothing more than conquest. I mean, you either convert or you die. I mean, and that's how it is. And then there is an in between for certain occasions where you can be taxed as a second class citizen more so than anybody in that empire. But um, but yeah, there can be an argument for that. But you cannot take away from the fact that this fight within civilization over land, over territory, over resource, over whatever you have, has been going on since the dawn of civilization, since empire building became a thing. So you can't take away from the ills of the Christians. You can't take away the ills of the Jews. You can't take away the ills of the Muslims. You can't take away the ills of anything religious, political. It doesn't matter. This is just a fight that we have yet to evolve away from in order to argue peace, in order to sustain peace. In my opinion, and I think Andrew, you would agree, the road to the roadmap to peace is it's evident before our very eyes, and nobody wants to see it. Is markets. It's to utilize the markets in its natural structure. It's voluntary exchange. It's individuals innovating and through entrepreneurial pursuits and cooperating with one another from the local level, bottom to top, in the absence of any governance, in order to sustain for the good of humanity in supply and demand of scarce resources. But we haven't got to that point yet. We're still fighting the same battle between government versus government, between religion that puts forth religion against religion, that puts forth state versus state, that puts forth people versus people, tribe versus tribe. And we need to figure out, how do we evolve away from killing each other over what?
Well, the thing is, the ball's on the field. They've already used violence, and they can't justify not using violence, and that would basically neutralize their whole existence. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Jews, you're talking about Christians, you're talking about Muslims. The governing model is always going to be ineffective, because there's always going to be somebody to blame for unintended consequences.
True that. Let's read one more comment.
Okay.
I actually like going
My
through
thoughts
these comments.
exactly.
Well, my thoughts exactly. Well, I guess there's no comments.
Well,
Let's see
there's
what
more. It's just
yeah.
that's from before. Hold on just a second. Yeah. This is 21. Hold on just a second. That's 4 o'clock. Oh, you have to sign it.
You gotta, never mind. Unless you want to put your
Yeah.
email in.
Right. No.
Not a big deal.
Top,
Well, with that, there's a top,
the
I
top
think.
comment. Yeah.
So you could have put view all well, no, that was view all comments. But where do we go from there? I mean, we need to learn from history. We need to stop living the past. We actually need to learn from the past. So what Israel is doing in Gaza is a terrible ordeal. It is the truth, though, that they were attacked. It doesn't matter where you go, where you are sitting, specifically here in the West, specifically here in America, where you sit on the political aisle. All right. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. I don't care. All right. I don't care where you sit on. The fact of the matter is Israel was attacked. I don't care where you sit on the level playing field of the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. All right. Perhaps, yeah. Even if you want to go dive deeper, yes, it is actually historically accurate that Hamas was propped up and funded by Israel, especially in the last decade with with Netanyahu, especially within the last few years with Netanyahu as prime minister and under his government. It's a known fact that Hamas is being utilized as a political tool. Cool. That's great. We know that. We know that Israel propped up at one time, propped up and funded Hamas in order to deregulate the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Great. We know that. Old news. That's history. Blowback. There's a term that Scott Horton likes to refer to as blowback. The blowback of the sins of the father, blowback with the sons. And so that is what we're seeing. So no wonder Israel was attacked. October 7th, 2023, Israel was attacked by Hamas. Hamas, and it is a known
Tit for
fact
tat.
that Hamas, yeah, it's a tit for tat. It's a known fact that Hamas utilizes tunnels and burrow all across Gaza in the cities. They like to utilize known civilian hotspots, schools, and hospitals for their entrance zones into these tunnels. It's a known fact. So where do we go from here? How do we get this divisional, tribalistic bullshit out of people's mindset to acknowledge that there are people on both sides that are being hurt at the hands of two evil entities?
We need to better ingrain the idea that conquest isn't the best solution to our personal problems. We can't get pride from hurting other people.
We need to learn from all those people. We need to sit down. If you got a grandma or grandfather, they're people, or great grandfather that might still be alive, or you know somebody that actually speaking. Let's go back to the Auschwitz article. Let's go back to the history. It's been over 80 years now, man, since it was liberated. So it's been 80 years since its liberation. Thank God. On what the Nazis did. But if you know somebody that is a survivor, sit down and listen. If you know somebody that was in World War II that actually was part of that liberation, I don't know who liberated Auschwitz. Was it the Soviets? Because it was in Poland. So if you're in Poland and you know somebody that was in Auschwitz, still in Poland, or you know somebody that was part of the liberation of Auschwitz, talk with them before they're gone and passed. But talk with these people that are survivors. If you know somebody or you have the ability to sit down with somebody that is still with us today before they're gone, get their take. The only way that you're going to get the real information is if you sit down and you learn from somebody who bared witness to the atrocities. That was a part of that history. You need to learn to listen. Ignore the media. Ignore social media. Ignore narratives.
Ignore TikTok.
Learn from the past. Ignore TikTok. Maybe. But learn what went on in history so that we don't continue to repeat the cycle. History rhymes only because we won't let the past go, because we're not learning from the past. Learn from the past so we can do better for the future, for our future generations. We got to fix it now, but we have to learn from the past. Listen and be truthful. Anything more, Andrew?
No, just try to keep the people in your memories as much as you can. Pray for them.
Amen to that. And with that, this has been another episode of Legacy News, episode 23. You heard it. We talked about it, of course. But I am the legacy of Jennifer Kaiser. I'm Zachary Kaiser. That's Andrew Joseph. Like, subscribe, share this content, and join the conversation. Drop a comment here on YouTube, and tell us what you think. What are your thoughts? So drop a comment in the chat on X when as this premieres somewhere, but join the conversation. What are your thoughts? Live long and prosper.
Thanks for watching.
Peace.